This hour is brought to you by Sweetland Waste and Removal Service, a homegrown company serving southern Indiana since 1995.
Well, we're coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jetliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin yang, come along.
Well, come on along and welcome aboard to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you on this Thursday, November 7th from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Hope your week's going well. Got another great show on tap for you. Dustin Schutte from the Saturday Tradition. We're going to talk some Indiana football. We'll talk Michael Penix, Indiana's bowl picture. We'll look at the overall picture of the Big Ten right now and talk a little bit about the college football playoffs. Kevin Brockway from CNHI is going to join me as well. We're going to talk some Indiana basketball. And we're also going to hear from Dawson Garcia, Indiana's top recruit, top target, as he talked about his Indiana recruiting last night on an interview with Tipton Edits. Tipton Edits is a graphic designer who basically, because of his edits, he just knows a lot of these kids. But he had a brief little, very informal discussion last night after meeting with Tommy Ostrom of Indiana basketball. Ostrom apparently was in Minnesota last night meeting with Dawson Garcia just before that. And in the interview, we heard him talk about that they want to get Archie in front of him one more time before he makes his decision, which is coming on November 20th, by November 20th, the beginning of the early signing date. He wants to go ahead and get that out of the way. So that decision is looming, and it's not going to be very much longer before that happens. If you watched the interview, which I did it took place on Instagram, there was just a large number of Indiana fans on there that whoever, I don't even know the kid's name that was doing that interview, but he kept mentioning that, wow. He kept noticing how many Indiana fans were on there, and he's like, wow. And it cracked me up that he was blown away by it, but there was at one point, I forget what he said, but he said something like, man, I knew it was serious, but man, I didn't know it was like this. So apparently Indiana fans just overloaded that interview, watching that interview last night. And there was a comment directly by Dawson Garcia when it was made aware to him that, man, the Indiana fan base is killing it on here. And he just kind of chuckles, yeah, they're for real. So he knows there's no doubt that there's one gigantic difference in whoever is recruiting him, that Indiana's fan base stands out right now. Unfortunately, the fan base only carries so much because his decision is going to come down to a lot of things outside of the fan base. And so we'll see not too long. I'd say, a week and a half we're looking about? Thereabouts. So it's not much longer. We'll find out where that young man's going to be playing. We're going to be hearing from him in just a minute. By the way, we'll hear from some of that. Tonight, Indiana women's basketball, top 25 women's basketball. They're in action at Simon Scott Assembly Hall at 7 o'clock if you want to go out and check that out. I'm sure they would appreciate it. I think I'm planning on being out there. Dustin Schutte is going to be joining us today from Saturday Tradition. We're going to talk a little bit about Indiana football, Michael Penix, that situation, Indiana's bowl projections, where they could possibly end up, things like that. Kevin Brockway is going to come up next. But before we get to that, Dawson Garcia last night, like I said, was talking to Mr. Tipton Edits. Let's hear what Indiana's top target had to say.
And then your Indiana visit. What was it like being in Bloomington, and how did that visit go?
It was great. Just going there with Trey. Trey and Anthony actually came up. Great relationship with them, as well as the players that are already on the team. It just kind of feels like I felt at home, really. They did a great job just showing me around. Met kind of like the other coaches that I haven't really met before. And the basketball piece, too, is crazy. Like, obviously, like you mentioned, their fan base, definitely the best fan base that's recruiting me right now. They're unreal.
Gotcha. And you also, for the people that are watching this that don't know what was happening before this, is you met with some of the Indiana coaches tonight. Who did you meet with, and what did y'all talk about?
I just met with Tommy Ostrom, and he was just talking to me, asked me kind of when I was going to make my decision. And I told him I'd probably make it before the first signing date, so November 20th. And he was just saying, like, that's great. Like, they feel great where they're at, and they just want to get Archie in front of my face one more time before I make my ultimate decision.
Gotcha. And you also mentioned Trey and Anthony. What's your relationship like with those guys?
Oh, it's great because, I mean, I've known them for a long time growing up. Indiana Elite D1 Minnesota. It's always been a battle. So we actually roomed at the Adidas All-American camp together. So I've known them. I'm pretty close with them and have been for a while.
Gotcha. And you also included UNC, Arizona, and Kansas on your list. What do you like?
Dawson Garcia talking about just mentioning Indiana and his recruiting process. The like I said, the fan base, you heard it right there, but he talked about it other times before they got into that. So there's no doubt that they've left a mark on him, but now it's up to the rest of the part that go into making that decision. And we'll be finding out. As you heard also, Tommy Ostrom was up there meeting with him, trying to get another meeting set up. He has a visit with Marquette, his official visit this weekend. They want to get Archie in front of him after that visit. Excuse me. They want to be that last face that he sees. And so that's what they're attempting to do. They want to – everybody wants to be the last thing on your mind. It's the freshest you want to. So we'll see how that goes out, but that's where that is. Also, another former Hoosier, Thomas Bryant, or not another, but a former Hoosier, Thomas Bryant. Was it last night he was in town? I think they were in town to play the Pacers last night. Let's hear it. Got a little bit with Thomas Bryant. Is this from Aaron Schifrin? Yes. Our friend Aaron Schifrin, who landed his biggest interview he's ever landed. So congratulations, Aaron. But here's what Thomas Bryant had to say.
Talk about how you ended up at IU.
I ended up at IU just through a long recruiting process with Coach Crean, and a lot of chemistry with the guys that I already knew that were there already. So really, it was just really the Coach Crean, the coaching staff, and the guys. I felt real connected with everyone there.
Can you talk about being back in Indiana? I know you said something to them about it too, but like I said, I didn't get it. Can you talk about being back around all your family and friends, being back here?
It feels good to be back around the friends and the guys I spent a lot of time in college with, and it feels good to be back in the state where everything's the real basketball started, and you got the most love and all that. So it feels great to be back here.
And then can you talk about being so many IU guys being in the NBA now? A lot of Crean's guys have made it. You're one of many. Obviously, Yogi was your teammate. You have Zeller, Oladipo earlier. So can you just talk about having all these IU guys in the NBA now and what it says?
It says a lot. It says that we have a lot of good talent, that Coach Green knows how to coach well, and then try and develop his guys into NBA players. You see guys having good longevities in the league, and playing key roles for each team. And it builds the. I'm supposed to put this the workers' mentality. They have to bring day in and day out, because he tried to establish that as soon as we got there at college.
And then with that,
there's Thomas Bryant, former Hoosier, doing extraordinarily well, man. Last night he had 20 and 11, 20 points, 11 boards. He has just become a professional basketball player. That's a guy that always worked hard. He worked hard when he was in Indiana. He gave effort. He was a hard worker. He was a hard-nosed guy. They had a lot of hard-nosed guys back then, but he was a hard-nosed guy, and he has transferred that onto the big stage of the NBA level. And he's just a consummate pro, man. He does it. He brings it. Congratulations to Thomas, man. He has signed a nice big fat contract before the season. He got paid. My man got paid, I'm telling you. But the Pacers win that game last night, 121-106. So congratulations to the Pacers, who kind of started off a little rocky. I think they started off 0-3 on the season, but they've won their last couple to start to even things out. But Thomas Bryant was in town last night. Coming up this weekend, Indiana is off. Indiana football, that is, off on a bye as they prepare for Penn State next weekend in Happy Valley. Saturday, Indiana basketball is in action at 2 o'clock. That is against Portland State. And don't forget, for all of you, after the game with Todd Leary takes place right about 15 minutes after the game ends, as soon as Don Fisher and those guys clear. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on our normal places. It's also, we are broadcast on Facebook Live in addition to Jake, does it go out to the podcast places when it's going through Spreaker? So you can find it anywhere that you find a podcast as well, or you can watch it on Facebook Live with the video. Todd Leary, of course, breaking down the action and letting you know what went on and how it broke down. So we'll be there. That's at about 4:15. We'll be coming to you from the Tap in B-Town on the square, southwest side of the square in Bloomington. As that should be I think that's going to be our last broadcast from there as we prepare to move to our permanent location. And I cannot wait to soon make that announcement. Very excited about that. Actually, 2 additional announcements to that to make as well. So we got three big announcements that are coming up, major involving the show. So looking forward to getting that information to you as soon as we can. But very excited about this stuff. But come on out if you want to. Saturday, whether you're going to the game or not, I mean, I'm at the game, and then we do the post-game show. So come on over to the Tap afterwards. There'll be a lot going on, a lot of college football afterwards. You can take in the show as well as college football as well. So looking forward to doing that on Saturday. Make sure you tune in then. And as a matter of fact, make sure you subscribe and follow us on the places where you can catch all of our content. We'll load all of our interviews and videos to our YouTube page. So you can subscribe there. You can follow us on Facebook, of course, as well as Spreaker. And at IndianaSportsBeat.com. That pretty much, IndianaSportsBeat.com gets you everything. The shows, the content. So that is the central hub, and one place you can sign up for everything to get. But we're ubiquitous, man. That's what Justin used to say. We're ubiquitous. We're everywhere. It's been a minute since I heard him say that. Hey, we got a lot coming up here on the program today. Like I said, Dustin Schutte from Saturday Tradition is going to join us. We're going to talk a lot of college football later. But coming up next, Kevin Brockway from CNHI. We're going to talk Indiana basketball, Dawson Garcia, and all that goes with that. Stay tuned. We're back with more from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
Don't you worry about a thing.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is A.J. Moyer.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lewis, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day, or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville. For the best recycling and waste removal service, turn to the area's leader, Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling, a homegrown company serving southern Indiana since 1995. Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling serves Floyd, Clark, Harrison, and Washington counties. For excellent service and peace of mind, call Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling today at 812-944-5642. That's 812-944-5642. Keep life sweet with Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
You're on the line with Jamal Meeks, former Indiana Hoosier, number 23, 1992. And I'm on the beat with Jim Cole.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. I'm just trying to wrap my head around what kind of music that was. Jake, you got me on that one. Coming to you from the golf club at Eagle Point Studios. Kevin Brockway from CNH Papers joining me now. Kevin, how are you doing?
Good morning.
How you doing, brother?
Well, you know, it's a little bit of a chilly morning, but I guess this is the kind of weather that builds character, right?
I'd say so. I understand you were up in West Lafayette last night.
Well, I am actually going on Saturday. I'm going to Texas. So I did not make it last night, but I am here now. And I was actually obviously at Assembly with you and everyone else watching IU's wonderful, pretty strong opener. You know, good opening statement. Granted, it's against Western Illinois, team that's 296 in Ken Palm. So hard to gauge in terms of the level of competition. But all 10 players played. A lot of players scored and contributed. It was, I think, a pretty strong debut to the 2019-20 season.
Well, I think it certainly was for this team because of what I saw on the court. And the biggest thing that I took away from that was they played that game as a team, as opposed to last year where I saw too many games where I looked out and said, what the hell was that? That was not the case the other night. I mean, again, you mentioned the competition. Yeah, they were playing against a substandard team, but I don't look at that because I'm not looking for that. But what I was looking for was how they played, and they seemed to play really well together. Lots of assists. There was no while Justin Smith dominated the stats and Al Durham dominated the stats. They didn't seem to dominate during the game as much as far as standing out. And I don't mean that in a negative way. What I mean is everything looked to gel. They just looked like they were really gelled together as a team on the court, both offensively and defensively for the most part.
Yeah, you know, and I thought the ball movement got better as the game went along and they got in transition a little bit and they got those steals. Justin Smith had those, 3 turnovers that led to, breakaway points, a couple of dunks and a layup. And, I think that kind of got him going, the defense turning into offense and, a little more tempo, which I think will serve them well because you've got some athletic guys in Justin Smith and Trace Jackson Davis, that can finish pretty well, when they're out running.
Yeah, and that's been a point of emphasis that Archie talked about. I mean, all the way back to the Big Ten media days, but the tempo, get the ball moving, get the ball down the court, and they did that. And on top of that, you had 2 different point guards because Rob Finney was on a minutes limitation. He didn't start the game, ended up playing about, I think it was 18 minutes. But he was very efficient in the time he's in there, scoring 14 points, which that's a great sign because they didn't get a ton of scoring out of him last year. And that's something they could certainly use. And by seeing his wanting and ability to do that the other night, that means this could be a very, very well balanced scoring attack for this team.
Yeah, and Archie talked about that in the preseason. Rob Finney, maybe being a little bit more of a scorer, and then you have Al Durham there as well playing the point. Scoring point guards are great weapons, just in terms of when you have that ability to put the ball in the basket. It kind of can throw defense off rhythm, off balance. You don't know whether a guy is going to dish. There's an extreme to it. You don't want a guy that's hogging the ball all the time and putting up, 15 or 20 shots from the point guard spot, but a little scoring, ability to get to the rim, Finney's quickness, I thought looked pretty good for a guy with an abdominal injury. I thought he got to the basket pretty well, and it's only going to get better.
Dude, I thought that the last time I saw him play, when we didn't expect to see him in the exhibition, he got down the floor in a hurry. As a matter of fact, it seemed like when he was in the game, the tempo was magnified a little bit. He really pushed the ball up the floor. Not that Al Durham didn't either, but I'm just saying it seemed like it was even faster. It was so fast, it seemed like it took them a little bit of time to adjust to that, because I think that may have kind of started a lull where they had some turnovers, successive turnovers, and missing shots there for just a little bit before they regrouped and got it together. But, man, they were really, really focusing on that tempo being very high.
Well, we know that Trace and Justin Smith can run the floor pretty well as big guys. I think the big question is when you have Deron Davis and Joey Brunk in the game, do you play with that same kind of tempo, or do you slow it up a little bit because they might not have that, same kind of speed to get up the floor as Trace does? But I think, like I said, pushing the ball, I think that could serve Trace really well. And Trace was obviously pretty impressive on the defensive end too with those 4 block shots last night. Also, I was really impressed with a lot of things that he did. 6 rebounds are trying to get him to, be tougher and throw his nose in there. And he showed some good things.
Yeah, and there's no doubt about that. I mean, he's been impressive. Both the freshmen have been very impressive to me. No doubt Trace Jackson has looked very consistent. He's looked assertive, both offensively and defensively. He's gotten a lot of rebounds, and that's going to be a key to this team. Rebounding is huge. Armand Franklin, also a freshman guard. He had 8 assists in that game. That's a huge number, man. Very important. It shows that he's finding the guys, getting the ball in the right place. But in the game before that, he had an 8 rebounds too. So it's a very, very well-rounded team, something we didn't see last year. This is very different from what we saw last year. Last year was very disjointed. I mean, I'm not pointing fingers saying Romeo this, Romeo. I don't even care. I'm just telling you that team was disjointed, and there was no team basketball, and it showed on the court. It was horrible at times. These 2 games I've seen, that's completely different and gone. But that tempo is very important because they don't have great outside shooting, and without Devontae Green right now, they've got even less of it. Al Durham looked okay the other night, obviously. He didn't miss a shot going 3 for 3. And if they could get additional outside shooting from someone like Al Durham and Finney, that's going to really increase the chances of this team being very successful this season.
Jim, and I think that's going to be interesting with Devontae Green is thrown into the mix with that chemistry and how it fosters and how the chemistry continues through adversity, when they hit a speed bump, where they hit a loss. And here's another thing too, Jim, and I'll pose this question to you, even though you're the host. When Devontae Green comes back, what do you do? Do you play big? Do you keep Justin Smith at the 3 because he looks really comfortable? Or do you go 3 guards with Durham, Green, and Finney? That'll be interesting for me to see as well, how they kind of start the game.
Well, that's a great question because last year Archie was a 3-guard system. And with wanting to have the tempo up, you would think that would dictate having 3 guards in there more often than not, just because of a necessity of getting down the floor quickly and getting to it. But like you said, Justin Smith, he did his work inside and a great job that he did, but he's so athletic. He's a unique big. I mean, he can get around quite. He's one of the most, if not the most athletic dude on that team. So that's a great question. And that changes the dynamic if they don't do that. But they're guard poor at the moment because of the health. And then you add Devontae Green. I talked about this with Todd Leary the other night. That is, like you just mentioned, that's going to change the dynamic because not only are you adding another person, but you're adding a guy who has been talked about and kind of known as being the offensive spearhead as far as scoring points and whatnot. The other night, they didn't have a problem with Al Durham and both Justin Smith getting theirs. How is that that person who wants that ball, who wants to score, and now you inject him into that lineup. It's going to be interesting to see how they're able to seamlessly accomplish that.
Yeah, and true. And we got to remember the level of competition too. Justin Smith, facing basically a 3 or 4 guard lineup against Western Illinois is going to be a lot different when you get into Big Ten play. But I think the problem lies when you play Justin Smith at the 4, you lose a little physicality in that spot that you have when you play Brunk and Trace Jackson together, a little size at the rim. So you kind of lose that when you're playing 3 guards. It's kind of but I think Archie does have the luxury where he'll be able to mix and match throughout the games with that. And he can kind of see how things are going. If his team is getting beat up on the boards, maybe go a little bigger. If your team is struggling from the perimeter, maybe throw more shooters out there. It's going to be at least a little bit of a luxury for him to have, depending on how he uses it once he get into Big Ten play.
Absolutely. Dawson Garcia was on he did an interview last night with the kid that does the Tipton edits, puts the pictures together for all those recruits. Kind of a very informal thing. And Tom Ostrom was there visiting Dawson Garcia last night, right before this. And we heard him talk about that Archie wants to get in front of him one more time, obviously because Dawson Garcia has his official visit with Marquette scheduled this weekend. So, and Dawson Garcia announced that his decision will come on or before November 20th. So that's not very far away. They want to get Archie in front of him after that visit to Marquette. I don't know that they're going to get that done or not, but he's certainly going to try for sure. But Indiana's in good shape with him. At this point, don't know where. I think it's between Marquette and Indiana. He did talk about Minnesota a little bit last night and how it would be kind of cool to stay home. He's only 20 minutes from that campus. But all things that I've heard leading up to this has not pointed in that direction. He talked about having a great relationship with Richard Pitino and those guys. So I guess you can't write him off for certain. Indiana's the furthest school away from him in that regard, if you're looking at that as a part of the equation. But Indiana seems to be in really good shape with him, but we'll know soon. It's not going to be that long.
Yeah, no question. And, it's interesting. I have a story coming out tomorrow on Anthony Leal, and I asked him a little bit about the Garcia visit, and he seems to think that, the visit over the weekend in Indiana went really well, and that they had a good time together and good chemistry. And I think in his words, he's hoping to get that closed soon, but we will see. Obviously, with the visit to Marquette over the weekend, that's going to be really telling how much he enjoys it there, or if he wants to stay close to home and play for Richard Pitino at Minnesota.
Well, if he's able to land Garcia, it'll be, I guess you'd still have to label it the second biggest recruit that he's landed behind Romeo, just because of the hype that went along with that. But as far as importance, I think that this probably exceeds Romeo because of the potential with this team. Romeo, obviously, last year the fit was weird. So other than a PR hit, a PR boost, it didn't translate to wins. I think Dawson Garcia is a different type of player, although I don't know that he's not a one and done either.
Yeah, Tim, I think it's interesting. And Trace last year, I don't know what kind of buzz that created, but that certainly, you get back-to-back Indiana Mr. Basketballs, and you might have a chance for a third with Leal, depending on what kind of season he has. I think he's doing okay, but like you said, that kind of top 30, top 50 guy, if you could get that in this class and a big guy like Dawson Garcia, that would certainly, put the icing on the cake and be a real, another nice boon in Archie's cap in terms of, recruiting for 2020 and beyond, also, creating that buzz and creating that momentum.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I think it's a critical recruit. If he doesn't get him, it puts them in a little bit of a jeopardy as far as their front court goes 2 years from now, because that means that they're only going to be landing guys in the 2021 class who will be freshmen and expected to play in that season when they come here. So getting a big in this class is very critical, but getting one at the stature and the level, talent level of Dawson Garcia is uber importance. But you got it with that class that you just mentioned with Trey Galloway and Anthony Leal. That makes this class a really, really good class. It might possibly boost them into the top 10.
Yeah, and obviously Leo. I mean, I think he'll be interesting, and he's certainly a hometown kid, a top 100 prospect, and gives him shooting, which is something that, as we know, IU is really trying to develop. That's been an issue in Archie's first few years in his tenure, so that certainly helps. I mean, if they don't land Garcia, Jim, what do you see as a plan B? I mean, is there another big out there that they could get in this class? I mean, obviously Geronimo is more of a wing, but would they have to kind of go scrambling here, or how would you assess what they would do if they didn't get Garcia in terms of addressing a big man in this class?
Well, they don't have a choice. If they want to land somebody in this class, they're going to have to scramble. I don't know if you go the JUCO route. I mean, there's ways. Do you scour the grad transfer market in the spring? It's certainly a scramble. It certainly puts you in a scramble, but it also puts you behind as far as the guys that you want in the mix. And so, man, it's just not a situation that you want to see him in, because that's being behind, coming from behind again. So hopefully that doesn't happen. But yeah, it's if they want to land somebody in this class, they will be scrambling. That's the best word. And I don't know if they go grad transfer, JUCO, but I don't know that they're going to look for a freshman. If they don't land Garcia, I don't know that they look for a freshman in this class.
Well, here's another interesting option too. I had a chance to talk to, Mike Roberts this week. He's from Terre Haute, one of the hometown papers I write for. So his overseas recruiting ties, maybe they go overseas and find the next Uwe Blab or something. Who knows? They could maybe do that as well. But I think there are certainly options out there. But like you said, I think Garcia is the first one. Really, you got to finish the job here and try to get him by November 20th.
Well, and it's also, there's another aspect to it too. Not getting him or losing out to him again, that would be yet another high-profile recruit lost out on. And that would be another in a long line. So I think that also adds another hit to Archie's recruiting of not landing some of these guys. So I think it's twofold. If he lands him, it not only gives him a really, really good recruiting class and a great piece going in that he can add to the roster, but it also, you mentioned, it puts a feather in his cap. It does. It finally puts a feather in his cap after so many misses. And I think that is almost needed as much as landing the talent onto the roster.
Yeah, it creates momentum, like you said, with recruiting nowadays, all about, trying to get the guys that, are high profile. But, you got to factor in chemistry too. You got to factor in other things as well. And by all accounts, Dawson Garcia, based on what I'm reading, he seems like a really good kid too, really team oriented as well, which is important. Anthony Leal certainly is, the time that I spent with him, he strikes me a guy that's about winning. And that's important, because if you get, a bad apple in the mix, you could get a top 20 or top 30 player, but sometimes they have demands. Sometimes they, have handlers. They have guys in the background that, have their agendas, and their agendas might be different to team agendas. So there's always a balance with that in terms of, finding guys that, are about the right things and the talent level as well.
We'll certainly find out. 2 weeks away, Kevin. We're 2 weeks away from it. Indiana off this weekend in football as well. So we'll talk about football next week. The Hoosiers 7-2, looking to get shored up as they travel to Happy Valley in a week and a half as well. So lots to talk about then. Thanks a lot. We appreciate you, brother. I hope you have a great day, and I guess we won't see you on Saturday. You'll be up in West Lafayette.
Yeah, I'm going up to Purdue, Texas. Should be pretty interesting. Shaka Smart, and I get my first look at Mackey Arena. And, the Boilers, did what they had to do against Wisconsin Green Bay. I think it'll be interesting to see Nojel Eastern in that game. His wrist was a little banged up, so we'll see if he'll be available. We'll find out. Kevin Brockway, CNHI, appreciate you, man. All right, thank you, buddy. You betcha. There's Kevin Brockway. We got more coming up. Dustin Schutte from Saturday Tradition. We're going to talk some IU football, Michael Penix, Bowls, Big Ten, and the college football playoffs when we come back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Back right after this. So baby, let's take that believe while I sing my comeback song. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway,
Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the golf club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lord, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day, or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville. For the best recycling and waste removal service, turn to the area's leader, Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling, a homegrown company serving southern Indiana since 1995. Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling serves Floyd, Clark, Harrison, and Washington counties. For excellent service and peace of mind, call Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling today at 812-944-5642. That's 812-944-5642. Keep life sweet with Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
This is James Blackman Jr., former Indiana Hoosier. Make sure you're keeping up with the Hoosiers on Indiana Sports Beat.
Today's guest is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, with hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer. Pizza, burgers, beer. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Thursday, November 7, coming to you from the Golf Club Eagle Point Studios, joined now by our good friend Dustin Schutte from Saturday Tradition. Dustin, how are you, brother?
I'm doing great, Jim. It's important month of football. We've got college basketball kicking off. This is the best time of year. How are you doing?
Good time, man. How can I complain, brother, with all that you just laid out? Normally we'd be doing the reporter segment here, but Indiana's on a bye week this week, so I thought I'd get Dustin on. There's so much we can talk about with Indiana football. First of all, the loss of Michael Penix, man. It sucks. It's not as bad of a blow as it has been to other teams and as much as it could have been. It still sucks regardless, but they at least have a solid backup in Peyton Ramsey going forward, and so that's not going to hurt them that much, but there's no doubt it makes a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And right now is exactly why you see that Tom Allen and everybody around that Indiana program has been so complimentary of Peyton Ramsey, because it would have been so easy for him to hop in the transfer portal and look for another place where he could have gotten a starting job. And I'm sure there were a lot of suitors out there had he chose to done that. And instead he sticks around, and now he's getting his opportunity. I mean, he's had it all season long with Penix banged up. But yeah, the 3-game stretch you've got coming up here at Penn State, then you have home against Michigan, and then at Purdue. These are the 3 games when you really wanted Michael Penix to be available, to be able to stretch those defenses. These are 2 of the better defenses on Indiana's schedule that you got coming up. So you'd like to have that other dynamic there. I did think it was interesting too, and maybe this is just me thinking a little too much about it, but I thought it was interesting. Tom Allen, Indiana, has kind of been a little hesitant to reveal Michael Penix's injury. I thought it was interesting that they did announce that he was out for the year, just kind of knowing that they have Michigan, Penn State, and not wanting them to game plan for two quarterbacks, I guess. So I thought that announcement was interesting, but word travels fast. So I'm sure that in the college football world with coaches and everything, that word would have got around eventually. But I thought that was an interesting dynamic. But Peyton Ramsey is more than capable of leading the ship. It'll be interesting now. He gets 2 weeks to prepare for two really good defenses. It'll be interesting to see what Kalen DeBoer dials up for the Indiana offense.
Talk about word traveling fast, Dustin. While the game was going on that day, I got a text from someone, a follower of the show who follows us every day, and said that he heard it was out of your mind. That wasn't too damn far off. That amazes me. The game was still going on when I got that text.
Yeah, that's crazy. I've never heard of anything like that. I mean, I know that people have inside knowledge and people have all kinds of connections and everything, but I can't believe that happened so quickly. That is kind of nuts. That's something I haven't even heard of before.
Anyway, Michael Penix is out for the season. Peyton Ramsey. The one good thing is 2 years ago, last time Indiana played Michigan State in Bloomington, they took him to overtime. Peyton Ramsey was the quarterback. So it's not like it's unprecedented to play Michigan hard with Peyton Ramsey. Of course, they got Penn State first on the road. The biggest difference to me in those two games specifically, having Peyton Ramsey as opposed to Michael Penix. Michael Penix has such a freaking quick release. He's gone. He doesn't hold on to that ball very long normally, and he's got such a quick release. Peyton Ramsey's a little slower, and with these two defensive lines, they're very, very active, especially jumping ahead to Michigan. They are very good at getting to the quarterback, which Indiana has been extremely good at protecting this year. They lead the Big Ten in the least amount of sacks, and when they meet up with Michigan, that's a team that has been getting a lot of sacks recently. So that's going to be two worlds colliding there. But this Saturday, they travel to Happy Valley to take on a very, very good Penn State team, a Penn State team that we find in the top four of the college playoffs right now.
Yeah, and I think some people were surprised that Penn State got the nudge over Clemson. They're the reigning national champions for that number 4 spot. And I think that goes to show that the College Football Playoff Committee realizes that the Big Ten is a conference that's for real this season, that Penn State does have some marquee wins. When you look at, they've beaten Michigan, they beat Iowa on the road, and they took care of business against Pitt. And then obviously they'll have some chances down the road. Penn State still has to play Indiana, which a lot of people are forgetting. Indiana 7-2. That's a good win for Ohio State and could potentially be a good win for Penn State if they were to knock off the Hoosiers. And then they've obviously got that big showdown with Minnesota this week. And then in a couple weeks, they go to Columbus to play Ohio State for what could be the biggest game in the Big Ten this season. So, I thought for sure Penn State would be in that number 5 spot. A little surprised to see them at number 4, but I think that goes to show that scheduling, how dominant Penn State's been in some of their games, and getting those 2 marquee wins was really impressive to the selection committee on Tuesday.
Well, I think that they also set things up for themselves committee-wise. The 4 teams they have in there all play each other within the next 2 weeks. LSU, Alabama, don't they play Saturday?
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's a point that a lot of people pointed out as well. Alabama, LSU this weekend, and then in a couple of weeks, Ohio State, Penn State. So Clemson, assuming those teams are going to beat each other, so Clemson's going to move up to at least that number 4 spot and be comfortably in as long as they continue to win out.
Absolutely, and so that's set up to take care of itself there. It's going to be very difficult for the Big Ten to get 2 in. The only scenario I see is if Penn State barely loses to Ohio State, and then they run the table the rest of the season, maybe. But with both of them being in the same division, that means one of them will not be playing in the Big Ten championship, and I think that's going to hurt whoever that other team is. Now, if I don't know that if Ohio State was to barely lose to Penn State and win out and get a big win over Michigan after that, is that enough to keep them in that top 4, or do they drop them out like they have the last couple of years, which the Big Ten's kind of gotten screwed the last couple of years, if you want to be honest about it?
Yeah, I completely agree with that assessment. I mean, when you look at it, the narrative is usually from the beginning of the season that the SEC is the best conference in college football, and a lot of that's predicated on preseason rankings. Well, the preseason rankings at this point should mean squat. It should be who you've beaten, how good you've looked throughout the season. And that's why, I didn't have a huge problem with what we saw in the top 10. Now, I did have a big gripe about putting Minnesota at number 17. I think when you have a bunch of 2-loss teams ahead of an undefeated team, regardless of who they've played, that undefeated team should get the benefit of the doubt until at least they lose. But you're right, the Big Ten getting 2 teams, a lot of people believe Penn State or Ohio State would have a really good shot based on the quality of wins they have. I mean, Ohio State right now has wins over number 13 Wisconsin, number 20 Cincinnati, a 7-2 Indiana. Assuming they beat everybody except Penn State on the schedule, they'd have a win over Michigan as well, which is ranked number 14 right now. I don't know. It's awfully hard considering what's going on in the Pac-12. I mean, Oregon and Utah are playing extremely well. You've got 3 really good teams, if you want to throw Georgia in there, in the SEC. It's going to be an interesting road down the stretch. And I know we come up with 1,000 different scenarios on what could happen, and usually it works itself out. But the scenario I think would be most interesting is what happens if Minnesota gets to that Big Ten championship game and maybe they only have 1 loss. Say they lose this weekend to Penn State, get to the Big Ten championship game, win out, and somehow find a way to beat an Ohio State or a Penn State again in a rematch. That would be, I think, a more interesting scenario to get an argument for 2 teams as opposed to Penn State or Ohio State with the loser of that game getting one of those 4 spots.
While I think it makes sense, I think that a 1-loss Minnesota team does not have a shot of making that Final Four, even if they played out like you just said, which would make it a very difficult road, and that would be a hell of a resume. If you barely lose to Penn State while it's going to be at home, but then are still able to go on and win the Big Ten championship, which could very likely be against Penn State again. Who knows how that works out? But it's going to be weird. Of course, we got a lot of weeks to watch it play out. But here's the thing about Minnesota. If they win, they're in. It's that simple. It doesn't matter if they're in 17th right now. If they win the rest of their games and they win the Big Ten title, they're in without a doubt. So they just simply have to win. I don't know that they have the luxury of being able to put a loss on their schedule per se, though, just because of perception with their previous schedule now. But who knows? It's a weird deal.
Yeah, it is, and I don't disagree with you. I think personally that just presents a more interesting scenario, because if you assume that Ohio State or Penn State, in this scenario it would be if you assume Penn State wins out, goes 12-0 undefeated, and then Minnesota gets a rematch and then beats Penn State. What do? Do both teams get in? Does Minnesota have the argument? Does Penn State have the argument? Because let's not forget, we're concerned about Minnesota, and I overreacted on Tuesday when I saw that they were 17, but this team has number 4 Penn State on the schedule. It has number 13 Wisconsin on the schedule. It has number 18 Iowa on the schedule, and then a potential Big Ten championship game. So you're exactly right. Minnesota has its biggest 4-game stretch coming up. If it wins out, there's going to be absolutely no concern. They have a chance to prove that they're the real deal. Especially if they win this week, they'll skyrocket into the top 10, no doubt.
And I was talking about yesterday, Indiana, unfortunately for them, if they had not lost that game in East Lansing, they'd be inside the top 20 right now, without a doubt.
Yeah, no question. And I would have put Indiana inside the top 25. Now, you can obviously make the same case that you do against Minnesota. There's not really a big quality win on Indiana's resume. But let's take it one step further, Jim. If Indiana beats Michigan State, if it's not for that one bad defensive drive there at the end of the game, we're talking about Indiana potentially having a shot to win the Big Ten East in November. That's crazy. Obviously, they would have to get some help, but if Indiana were to beat Penn State, Michigan, and Purdue, and then Ohio State drops to Penn State or Michigan, falls flat at the end of the year, you're talking about a team that could have potentially earned a spot to Indianapolis. And I know we don't like to play the if, and what game, but just thinking about that one bad drive, and you're talking about Indiana having an outside chance to get to Indianapolis, and that's just a credit to what Tom Allen's done this season.
Absolutely. It's nuts, man, is how things change. And talk about potential bowl opportunities for Indiana this year. I don't see – I think that they should beat Purdue. I wrote it's a rival game, so you throw a lot of stuff out the window, and you got Jeff Brom there, who he's still a great coach, no matter what their record is right now. But Indiana should win that game, and if they lose to Michigan and Penn State, that still gives them an 8-4 record on the season. That's a record that Indiana hasn't seen in 26 years, and I think that lands them in a bowl with possibly Florida at the Gator Bowl, maybe.
Yeah, the interesting thing, and I think what might be a little bit disappointing from the Indiana standpoint here now is there's a chance that the Hoosiers get snubbed for a Florida Bowl. Now, I'm not an expert on where teams land as far as bowl is concerned, but what I do know is when those bowl representatives are making trips to Memorial Stadium, like Indiana needs to have max capacity for that Michigan game, because bowl representatives want to see that you are bringing in a lot of fans to your stadium. They want to know that you're going to be able to travel well. So that's an important thing. I think Indiana fans can have a little bit of an impact here on where the team goes. It's not always just about the wins and losses. You saw it a few years ago. Michigan State won the head-to-head against Michigan. They had finished higher in the Big Ten standings, and still Michigan got to go to the Outback Bowl. Michigan State was sent to the Holiday Bowl. Because of the traveling fan base and the revenue that Michigan would bring, that fan base would bring to the Tampa area. So this isn't just about what Indiana does on the field. I mean, I think if Indiana gets to 8 wins, I would assume that they're going to get to a bowl in Florida. But the Indiana fans can also have an impact on this. If the stadium is mostly blue in a couple Saturdays, there are going to be bowl representatives that are rethinking about where they want to take Indiana and whether they want to bring them to their city based on how well they're going to travel. So that's always an interesting caveat that not a lot of people always think about.
That's a great point, and it's sad because I've talked about that this week. It's sad to see a fan base that even the student section, when they come out and have a great night, they leave at halftime. It doesn't matter who they're playing. It doesn't matter what the situation is. They leave at halftime, and half the fans go outside and leave at either leave or go outside and go back out to the tailgates or whatever. It's just a bad. It's with the losses for so many years, it's just a mindset here, and they're going to have to change that if they want this team to be successful. You've got a 2 or 3 win Purdue team that's outdrawing Indiana at home, and it's just sad. And it'd be nice to see the fans get on the bandwagon.
Yeah, and I expected to see a much better crowd last Saturday, and I wasn't. I just went off pictures. I think you sent out a few pictures. I know a couple other reporters and people in the stadium sent out some pictures there. I was surprised to see so many thousands of seats empty. I know it was Northwestern who was not playing great, but this is an Indiana team that is having its best season in 25 years and could potentially do some historic things. I mean, I wouldn't even rule out the possibility if you get an upset over Penn State or Michigan and you beat Purdue, as you said, you win your bowl game. This is a 10-win Indiana team. I mean, this is a team that can do some historic stuff, and I think that they deserve more support. Now, I understand that there's been history there, and there's still some people that aren't quite buying into this notion. Well, Indiana hasn't beaten a good team. Well, we've been lied to before, and so on and so forth. There's some people are still pointing out the fact that they got blown out by Ohio State, which, by the way, everybody's getting blown out by Ohio State.
Exactly.
So it's an interesting mindset. I understand that there's a little bit of hesitation here, but at the same time, if you can't enjoy 7-2, then I don't know what your damn problem is.
I hear you, and it's been an entertaining product. That's the thing. They're not just winning; they're not squeaking by running trick plays. This is a good team. At the start of the season, I remember talking about how this offense. I thought it could be a prolific offense, and it has been. But not only has it been, it's been that way with 2 different quarterbacks. Peyton Ramsey is set to leave school, I think, as the Big Ten's all-time leader in completion percentage. Soon. I think I think he's already in front of Chuck Long, and that would be kind of ironic to see your backup quarterback leave as the Big Ten leader in that category.
Yeah, and it's not like he's thrown 10 passes either. I mean, this is a guy who's thrown a ton of passes, and he's still completing, I think, right now at 72% clip, I think is what I saw. And he's not turning the football over. I think it's 10 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, something like that. I get the 2 mixed up because they have used 2 quarterbacks so frequently. But yeah, we were talking the other day, I don't know if Indiana is one of the top 3 offenses, I think, in the Big Ten. And that's saying something when you have Ohio State, when you have Michigan, who's looked better, when you have Penn State, obviously Scott Frost at Nebraska, Purdue with Jeff Brom. Those are some high-powered offenses, and I think Indiana is easily one of the top 3 offenses right now, especially when you talk about the passing attack. And the rushing game has really picked up. Stevie Scott's hit 100 yards 3 of the last 4 weeks. I mean, you're right. This is an entertaining product. This is a fun team to watch. And I guess that's why I was so surprised to see on Saturday, even with a bad Northwestern team coming to town, because that game against Nebraska, I mean, that was a game where it was entertaining start to finish. Indiana found itself down 2 scores early, could have gone down 3 scores in that game. Fights back, gets a 2-touchdown lead. I mean, they're throwing passes all over the field, eviscerating what has been a decent Nebraska defense at times. It's just a really fun team to watch. And so I keep scratching my head at why people can't buy into this, because there are a lot of teams right now who would be elated to be 7-2, and they don't care who they beat. So, my message would be just enjoy these final 3 games, turn out for the Michigan game. And, I'm not a big proponent of telling people what to do with their money, but this is a fun, entertaining team to watch. And who knows how long it may last. It looks like Tom Allen is building this thing for the future, but you look at what Purdue had. Purdue looked like it was on a trajectory to potentially compete for the Big Ten West this season, and right now they're 3-6. So you don't know how quickly things can change, especially in football, where programs are constantly growing, things are constantly changing, and injuries are always happening. So enjoy 7-2, because it doesn't happen at Indiana that often.
Absolutely. Dustin Schutte from Saturday Tradition. You can find him there. Complete coverage of the Big Ten football scene, man. Thank you, sir. Look forward to we'll be back at it next Thursday, Dustin, as Indiana travels to Penn State next week. So thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Jim. We'll do it again.
You betcha, brother. It's Dustin Schutte from Saturday Tradition. Hey, man, that's going to wrap it up for us today. A little muted version of the show. We're going to go quick out today, but we appreciate everybody. Dustin Schutte there from Saturday Tradition, Georgia. Kevin Brockway from CNHI before that. We also heard from Dawson Garcia, but we'll be back tomorrow to close out the week with the Todd Father, Todd Leary, as Indiana gets ready to hit the hardwood on Saturday against Portland State. So for Jake, I'm Jim Coyle from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Until the next time, I'll see you on the radio.